Number one, the type of salt capable of transmitting taste. This discussion relates to salt that is wet, which is potent and capable of effective taste transmittal. Dry salt, however, has no effect on food, right? So, as we said before, one of the way how the liquid how the taste is transmitted is through liquid. So if it's completely dry, so if you salt like on some on some dry food, you can just shake off the food the salt and that's it. It's not there. So but if it's wet, yeah, it's going to stick and it's going to penetrate. Thus, if dry salted meat and cheese touch each other, they merely require rinsing. That's it. So as we said, it's only on top. Some maybe it's soiled each other, but that's it. You just rinse, as we said, again because they're cold and you can eat, no problem. Continue. Number two. So okay, so salt capable of transmitting. So one more time, it's only wet salt. Number two, the amount of salt is necessary to transmit taste. The rule of Maliach Kesoreach applies only if salting is potent, so potent that the food is inedible because of the salt upon it. So that's a very interesting definition. You see, in olden days there were no like a measurement, so they had to like give some parables, some examples, some things to compare to. So they say, what it means, salted so much that you would not eat food. So usually they would salt like this for preservation. Even cheeses, there are some cheeses, like they in olden days they salt so much, like it was inedible. I think I'm not sure what they did. They put it in the milk. I don't remember, but there is some procedure to remove some of the salt because it was inedible. Okay, so that's our criteria. Make it inedible. I mean that means salted. The three level of salting: A, heavy salting of meat done for preservation is most potent from form of salting. So this meat, that's what they did in olden days. So this meat could stand like forever. I mean, I'm not sure forever and ever, but for a very long time, like in a room temperature, no problem. In the summer, no problem. That's how much meat salt it was. Meat, one second. Meat salted to this degree has ability to transmit its taste upon contact with any food. Okay, so meaning it's like so salted can transmit the taste to any food. But I'm not sure how long does it take for a meat to absorb all of the salt to be in this level. I'm not sure. It's not 1 day. I think it's more. I mean, it's not, at least not few hours. Maybe a day, maybe a few days. I'm not sure. Okay, the meat retains this power until the salt is removed by soaking the meat in water. So that's until there is still salt, and as we said, the salt is absorbed in the meat. So and until you soak it, it's still there. It's going to cook. It's going not to cook, but transmit the taste. Okay. Just one second. Last line one more time. The meat retains power until the salt removed by soaking the meat in the water. Okay, soak. I'm not sure. Maybe even for 24 hours, and then you can cook, and it's not so bad, right? Merely rinsing the meat of the salt cannot eliminate the effect of the salt. So, which makes sense. I mean, it's when you rinse on top, it's going to remove the salt on top, but not inside. Okay. 1 second, let me see something. Okay, we're good. 1 second. So it was a B. The salt, the salting of the meat to the degree required, the removal of the blood in preparation for soaking in a pot that has the ability to transmit the taste upon the contact with any food. I'm not sure why we're going into blood thing. Okay, let me read one more time. The salting of the meat to the degree required to remove its blood in a preparation for cooking in a pot has the ability to transmit the taste upon the contact with any food. However, once the meat is rinsed of this salt, it cannot transmit any taste. So let's try to understand. So first we're talking about the meat that was salted for preservation. A lot of salt. No, we understand that. So I don't think they do it today. It's not necessary since we have refrigerators. But B, it's very interesting. B, for sure they do. That's what we do. When they slaughter like animal, right? So they rinse the meat first in the cold water, not warm water, cold water, and then not too cold, maybe lukewarm, but the special temperature of the water, right? And then they salt it. Right, salt with like a kosher salt to extract the blood, and then they rinse again. So it's very interesting that they say while it is in this state of extracting the blood, right? So even though it's not so much salt, I mean it's a lot of salt, but the salt did not get absorbed. So in this case, the salt in the surface, it cannot transmit the taste. No, one second. However, once the meat, yes, it can transmit the taste, but once you rinse off the salt, it no longer can transmit the taste. Because, as we said, the salt never penetrated. It was on the surface. So our goal was to remove the blood. And that's why you cannot you can never use for this process like fine salt. Why? Because it's going to get absorbed. That's not what we want. We want it to stay on top. That's why like coarse salt, like big pieces, right? And it's going to extract the blood. That's how it works. But after you rinse, there is no transmittal of the taste. But when you rinse, just in the first case, when we salted the meat for preservation, it doesn't do anything. So it's still going to transmit the taste. Continue. C. The light salting of the meat, which is sufficient to remove the blood in a preparation for broiling over the open fire, cannot affect taste transmittal. However, since we are not capable to differentiate between the last two levels of salting, Ashkenazi custom is to consider even this light level of salting capable of transmitting taste. Rama. Okay, so let's explain what are we saying here. So you can okay. We have to when we slaughter a cow, let's say, right? So we have to extract the meat, the blood from the meat, right? The blood from the meat. So the straightforward way, well, what we do with the salt, right? But it's also possible to do it with the broiling, right, on top of the fire, and that's what we do if somebody wants to eat liver, right? So the only way to eat liver is when you broil, right, like a barbecue, right, on top of the fire, and so the blood would drop down, right? Otherwise, salting is not going to help because there is so much blood in the liver that it is impossible to take it out by salting. Okay, so and sometimes to make it faster, right? They want to prepare the meat faster. They would salt the meat lightly, so not as much as in the first time, right? I'm not sure. I don't remember. Like maybe 15 minutes, like not a very long time. Then they rinse it, and still, of course, there is still blood. And like this, they put over and broil it like this. So it's like finishing the process, right? So of course, it's much lighter salting, like compared to the first case when we want to extract all of the blood. But right, so it says there is no transmittal of the taste because it's lightly salted on one hand. On another hand, so our sages, especially Ashkenazic tradition, say Rama, he was very, very, very strict. So usually when we're talking about koshering of the meat, even Shulchan Aruch says, yeah, there is no problem. And Sephardic, I think they follow Shulchan Aruch, unless Rabbi Vadia, the Tzalp, Paskin a little different today. Like it could be different because of the technology, different technology, of course. We understand that. But Rema, Ashkenazic tradition, he said many, many times, you see, look, we do not know. We've been in exile for such a long time. Maybe it's salted, maybe not salted. Let's not go into it. And that's why Ashkenazic tradition don't eat the rear part. Right? In some Sephardic circles, they know how to remove the sciatic nerve, and they can eat it. There is no problem. I mean, the only restriction is not to eat sciatic nerve from the right part. That's it, rear part, right, of the animal. That's it. So and rabbinic prohibition is not to eat fat that is around this nerve. So technically, if you know where the nerve is, and you cut a little excess, so maybe you're good. But Ashkenazic tradition, we say we do not know, we're not sure, we're not going to risk. It's a biblical prohibition. So just give it to non-Jews and let them enjoy the steak mignon, whatever it calls, right? And we're going to eat only front part. Okay. Continue. In addition to this distinction, so we have three cases, right? But we have three cases. No, okay. So one. Oh, okay. He's going to do the summary. Okay. So I'm not going to do. In addition to this distinction, there are many variables with regard to the rules of Maliach Kesareach. There are differences between the different foods regarding the extent of the penetration of the non-kosher taste. Some foods are affected only on a klipa, on the outer shell, and other foods affected throughout the entire food. So, for example, as we said last time, fish, if salt fish, after a few hours you can eat it, right? I mean, some people eat. Right? It's almost ready, from the salt. They rinse the salt and they can eat. There may be a distinction between biblically forbidden foods and the foods that are rabbinically prohibited. And whenever both foods are salty, or only one is salty. Okay. So summary is, let's read the summary and we're going to conclude. The Halachos Meliach Keroseach fall within the domain of the competent treif. Okay. Whenever salty meat or cheese touch each other, even both of them are dry, if either one, right, but it is salted, like heavily salted. It's not like you salted when you were cooking. It's not salted, right? It's normal, right? It's like extra salted, or either touch parve food, or kosher food touch non-kosher food. Rav must be consulted. So I'm not sure how often we would have this kind of meat. I mean, if you don't kosher meat in the house, so for sure we don't have it. If you buy this, so I would say maybe the third case would be more practical, unless somebody want to give me a different example. So with this liver, so the liver, yeah, people kosher it in home. Like, of course you can, you go to the butcher store, you can buy the broiled liver. It costs a lot of money. Of course they did all of the work for you, or you can buy the fresh. So in the store where I go, they sell the fresh liver. You can buy, but I don't think it's healthy. I mean, I know it's not. Rambam said it's not healthy, so why should we?